Welcome. I'm here today with Scott Schwartz, the author of Adapting Elsewhere, a new book about the challenges and opportunities of living abroad. With a record number of Americans both moving overseas and considering moving overseas, the book couldn't be more timely. It's good to see you, Scott. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Hugo.
So let's dive straight in. Why are you uniquely qualified to write about this subject?
Well, I don't know how uniquely qualified I am, but I have had a career, a past life as an airline pilot, so I got to see the world up close and personal as a pilot, flying internationally to Europe, the Middle East, Asia, Caribbean, all over the U.S. So I got a good look from the air, and I also spent time sailing around the world in the Atlantic, the Pacific, around Cape Horn, and doing some sailboat races over to Hawaii. So it gave me a on-the-ground look. And I had the opportunity to spend some time in Arctic regions. I worked with a couple scientific groups, one in Greenland, the University of Copenhagen. I spent some time with these guys, and I said, cut to the chase. Tell me about climate change. Is it really a thing? And they said to me, well, we've had more melting in the last 10 years in Greenland than we've had in the last 2 million years. So yeah, it's a thing. And then by happenstance, I happened to be down in Antarctica a year later, and I ran into another scientist, and basically he said the same thing. So I realized that climate's an issue. I have an educational background in weather and climate, and spending time with these scientific groups and having my own empirical experience as a pilot gave me sort of a climate and a cultural overview of the world. So I thought, since I spent that time exploring the world, and I spent several years in academia as a business student, getting an MBA, and then going to Wharton Business School and learning about investment and finance, I sort of put it all together. And I started working with the pilots, the pilot group that I flew for, and I oversaw their pension fund. They had $11 billion under management. So it's this sort of holistic, from the ground, from the air, and in the boardroom, working on these big pension plans, made me think, this is sort of my thing, and I'm interested in living abroad. I've lived abroad partially pretty much my whole life, and I thought maybe I could share some of the information that I've received with others.
So you've flown around the world, you've sailed around the world, explored the Arctic environments. Did you mention that you are a member of the Explorer Club in the US?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
Oh, the Explorers Club is in New York. It's kind of an old school place. Thor Heyerdahl, who did the Kon-Tiki, was one of the part of the group there. And one of the funny stories I like to tell is Steven Spielberg went to the Explorers Club to get some ideas for Indiana Jones. And there were a couple whips there. He was curious about these whips. And evidently, he got the idea from the Explorers Club to give Indy a whip instead of a gun, because there was a real guy. Actually, Spielberg said there was 3 people that made up Indiana Jones, and one of them couldn't get a gun through customs in various countries back at the turn of the last century. So he learned how to really use a whip. So the whip became his weapon of choice.
Amazing. And so the transition into finance and investments. So as you say, you were working for an airline, you were flying and then managing the pensions for the airline. And how did your career transition after you stopped flying?
Well, I had an investment. I've been involved in the investment world since 2004. So it's been about 32 years where I've had a parallel life as an investment advisor. And most of that was with expats. Most of it was with your fellow Brits. And what we did was we pretty much managed Brits that moved abroad, primarily to the United States, and we managed their pension funds. So I've been involved with finance since 2004, doing financial planning, doing investment consulting, and working with expats.
Yeah. And so what is your current role and what services are you offering?
Well, now I'm with International Asset Management, and we have office in the West Coast. We have a lot of clients. We have a lot of families. We have about $150 million under management. And there's also a firm that we're tied to in Spain, so we can handle people that are Americans moving abroad. We can handle people that are in Europe that either are Europeans or Americans that become full Europeans. So it's sort of from soup to nuts. We can handle investment for expats, but primarily my focus anyway is on Americans moving abroad full-time or part-time, and my subspecialty is Malta.
So what's the connection to Malta? Have you spent some time there, or?
Yeah, I spent a couple of years on and off there recently. Malta's a great place in terms of being in the center of the Mediterranean. I'm a sailor, and it's a great place to keep a boat. They have great maintenance there. They speak English. There's a nice expat community there of Americans and Brits and many others as well. But it's an English-speaking country. It's beautiful. One of the jokes I make is that if you took Rome and you jammed it into a small container, you'd find Valletta. It has a very similar feel to it. It's a 16th century city, and it's pretty cool. And it's very American friendly, very English friendly.
And they have a favorable tax regime for expats, is that correct?
They do. It's complicated though. I think as you know, we get into one of the things we do is financial planning, and there's different ways to be in Malta. There's the Schengen method of not spending more than 90 days and 180. There's being a digital nomad. There's being a resident, somewhat of a retiree. But every country in Europe is slightly different, and there's also similarities. So I think it's crucial that if anybody is considering going there, that they reach out to an immigration professional and figure out what's best for them. And there's also a big financial planning component, which I think you're alluding to. And it's not something I think you should just jump in, get in an airplane and go to Malta or anywhere for that matter. I think it's important to be thoughtful about it. Think about when to sell your house or not to sell your house, or what kind of investments you can have. Some investments in the United States aren't allowed in Europe. You don't have to move your assets. You can keep them in the United States, which is generally what we recommend, but it's complicated. So I think people need us to make a thoughtful transition from being in the United States to being in Europe, and in my case, Malta specifically.
Yeah. So what is a typical client? So retiring abroad, or career placements, or a mix?
I think our typical clients are approaching middle age or older. Some people are younger and they want to move abroad and raise their kids elsewhere. And that's the minority. I think the average client is either approaching retirement age or at or beyond retirement age. And they're looking for a way to enjoy their retirement in a beautiful environment that frankly costs less money. There's generally about a 20% discount for living in Europe for Americans. And they'd be surprised at some of the discounts, particularly when it comes to food and medical care.
And the book covers the sort of process of adapting. Of course, it's entitled Adapting Elsewhere, but can you tell us a little bit more besides the financial side, what other considerations are there when adapting to moving abroad?
Well, as I think we've talked before, it's a big emotional arc. It's not something that can be taken lightly, and it's a very good idea to do exploratory missions, go to where you think you might want to go. And a lot of people end up not where they thought they wanted to go, but they end up somewhere else. After doing the research, people have said, I'm going to Italy, and then they end up in Greece. So it takes prep, it takes homework, it takes thoughtfulness, and it takes hiring the right professionals to help you, whether, lawyers, tax professionals, financial firms like ours.
So you'd recommend getting a team together of the financial professionals, and which those include exactly?
Well, I think the first thing you do is explore and figure out where you might want to be, because it's country specific in terms of building your team. So once you figure out you want to go to Malta, as an example, you'd want Malta specific people. You'd want an immigration professional. You'd want a lawyer to talk about estate issues and some of the ancillary issues involved in immigration, and a financial professional like us to help manage money, because you can get in big trouble if you do it wrong, and having two tax people possibly, one in the United States and one in Malta.
Yeah.